And there'll be an advertisement at the beginning, so we'll have to like wait 10-ish seconds for everyone to pop in. But hello to everyone watching the playback. We are live. Welcome to our discussion about Deadhouse Gates. I'm very excited to be discussing this because I have a lot of thoughts about it. And so it looks like everyone popped in now. Hello to everyone joining us. Go ahead and let us know in the comments if you were reading this book for the first time, or if this is a reread, or if you're a veteran of the series and you're just here to hear us talk about it. I figured first we can like introduce ourselves just in case there's anybody new here. Kayla and Bryce's channels are linked in the description box below. My name is Kaylee. This is my channel. This is my first time reading this series, and so I'm definitely going in as a complete newbie, no prior knowledge of the series whatsoever.
Yeah, my name is Kayla. I have a channel called Kay's Hidden Shelf. I read a lot of fantasy. First time through Malazan, and Deadhouse Gates was a easier read through for me than Gardens of the Moon, so I'm really excited to talk about it.
Oh, Bryce, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm always muted. There we go. Bryce was shelf-centered. I should know this by now. We've been doing this how many years now? As a society. Let's see, this is the third time through Deadhouse Gates. I've been going through really the main series for the second time, but I've already been through the first 6 twice, if that makes any sense. So anyway, decided to jump on this one because it's fun. Hope I haven't been too much of an annoying rereader, but I love the series. Absolutely, it's just the best, and I cannot wait for your thoughts, good or bad, whatever. I'm not offended, whatever they are. And I'm not here to convince you either, because I can fully admit that, everything really, it's any kind of book is going to be what you want. It's either like it or you don't, whatever. It's okay. You like it a little, you like it a lot, whatever. We're all in it. But the thing is that we all get to promote is good books in general and reading. So that's good.
Yes. So I think we'll start with a non-spoiler section, and this will be a quick section just for us to kind of talk about any general thoughts and our rating for the book as well. I am going with a 3-star for this book because I did have a lot of moments I struggled with, but also I had a lot of moments I thoroughly enjoyed. So I think it's very much a 3-star, but it's one of those 3 stars where there wasn't a lot of indifference. There was annoyance and hatred at some parts and love and very much into it at other parts. So there were 5-star moments for me and there were 1-star moments for me. But yeah, so those are my overall thoughts. Kay, how did you think about this book? Would you rate it?
Yeah, so I would rate it 4 stars. There was a lot more that I enjoyed in this, mainly because I settled into it a lot easier than Gardens of the Moon, in terms of understanding the world, the magic, and following some of the characters. The first 25% of it was a little tricky, and after that it started to work better for me. But overall, I really enjoyed it. There was a lot in it, like you said, that I loved, and then there were some parts where just I had either shock or like, okay. So it was a mostly good read. There was just that first 25% or so that was a little tricky at the beginning.
I think it's always, and will not be the first time, as you probably experienced if you've already started Memories of Ice. And at least Memories of Ice gets a little better, but it's for the most part, any new Malazan, you're always getting into new characters, and you're like, can we just like one time have a start where something is familiar, a little bit familiar. You almost have to like redo it every single time, and that I absolutely remember that. But if I could give more than 5 out of 5 stars, I would. I think this is one of the, especially on a 3rd time read. First time, I actually didn't love it as much as I knew a lot of people did. I think, and I've kind of reasoned, I don't know, it just, one, I didn't get a lot and not saying you guys didn't. It just all this is all for me, not no projecting. It's taken me literally the 3 times to like really understand what kind of is going on, and then it just it has one of the just most tragic, epic endings. Not to, I know we're no spoiler, but I won't get into what that specifics are, but it just, and I'm like, what does that say about me if this is one of my all-time favorite books of all time, when it's like one of the biggest tragedies that I've ever read. And it is the Malazan Book of the Fallen. That's why I don't feel like it's that much of a spoiler to be like, there's some people that die. So, but just in the way that it happens, the frustrations, absolutely. But this time through was more, some of the funnier characters stood out. There wasn't any Croup or Krupp or whatever, but there was a Iskerl Pust. And he is one of those that I feel like on my first read, I just did not understand. And the more I've read, the more that he brings out in other characters too, just this like funny exchanges, from like Cutter trying to, wanting like, can we just get rid of this guy right now? Like everyone else, like, well, he's got like a lot of power, you don't want to mess with him. So anyway, I know I'm rambling now, but it's so one of the just most epic, the Mappo and Ikariam relationship. I literally was in tears this time. Like I don't, it doesn't happen for me too often, but just the love of like the love in a friendship that someone can have, and just so well exemplified. And then just the crazy nutty magics that are going on. And then you've got Felizan, which took me a couple reads to enjoy her character, let's just say, because she is her own, she's a teenager trying to react and not reacting in the best way to a situation that is one of the worst you could possibly be in. So, the more that I've kind of had to taken a step back and gone, man, I did not like her the first read, I will have to say. The more I've read, it's just, at least there's understanding, right? And anyway, so I know I just rambled a bunch for it. So I love it. Absolutely.
We love your rambling. It's always nice to hear from you because you have so much knowledge about it. And I will be the first to admit, I'm sure I missed so many things in this book. It's so dense, and as a first time read through, it's difficult to grasp everything, especially when I'm trying to read a bit more than 20 pages per day, So yeah, it's definitely one of those series that I could see the wanting to go back and reread books over and over again. It's also funny that you mentioned the, Erickson like throwing you into full new characters, because Kayla and I were talking behind the scenes like before this show was live, and I saw on the wiki that this book was originally going to be book 3 apparently, and then Memories of Ice was book 2, but then he accidentally deleted a file or something, and he ended up working on it instead. Yes, like that is very interesting that a fantasy series can so easily switch the order of the books, and it doesn't even matter because it's almost entirely new characters. So definitely a different structure for a fantasy series than I'm used to.
And I can't imagine the frustration of losing all that. But apparently he said like, hey, it actually was a good thing because I was able to actually set up some things. And I know just the little bit of writing that I've done is like, which I'm not I like enjoying other people that can do it well, which I can't. But just to see like even just a write through of something, then you can already get like a lot of like, okay, now I know which things to kind of put in place and get your foreshadowing and set pieces up.
Also, hello. I think I'm gonna go ahead and take off the non-spoiler banner. That way we can jump into full spoilers if we want. Also for the people here, because I know we had a couple more people jump in as we were speaking, if you would like to, you can go ahead and let us know in the comments what you rate this book overall. And if you're a Malazan veteran, you've read all of them, I'm curious where this ranks in your ordering of your favorite books within the series. And then I figure we can talk about Felice since she's already been brought up, because while this was Bryce's least favorite part of the book first way through, Felice was my shining light throughout the book. Like, she was my favorite part of the book. I was sad when we were not with Felice. Although Kayla told me behind the scenes that she is 15 and I completely missed that. I was thinking she was in her 20s the whole time. So that changes how horrible her circumstances are for me. But yeah, I adored Felice. And do I agree with all of her choices? No, but I adored her character, and the character arc that she had throughout the series was, even when she was being bratty, I was still team Felice.
She wasn't always like wrong, right? Like, it wasn't like, anyway, yeah. And I think you are probably much wiser than I, especially when I first read this, because I was just like, oh, like, why are you acting like this? Because you could kind of tell the other guys are trying to help, and she's going, she's the one going, I'm saving you guys. I'm bringing you guys along. What are you thinking? What are you talking about? And so just to, I don't know, just see that dynamic there. Yeah, she's one of the most divisive characters. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really liked her character as well, reading through her and Kalam later on. But Felice's character, I was impressed with how dense this is right off the bat in terms of the series. There's so much going on that I found myself focusing a lot on the plot, trying to follow the plot and the world building, that the characters more felt like pawn pieces up to this point. And Felice was the refresher where I was like, yes, a character-driven narrative where I can actually like go into the character's mind and see all the complexities of their humanity. That was, I think, where it clicked for me with Felice.
Yeah, I think that's why I also liked Felice so much. And I agree with some of the characters feeling like plot pieces at points, where I think the issue that sometimes I have with characters in these books is that they're so epic, and it's so like important to the world, and there's so many plots going on that sometimes it's difficult for me to remember them as like individual people, and instead just be like, here is this epic character that does these epic things, where Felice felt more like a real person, where it's like, oh, she is just struggling to survive, like she's not powerful, at least in the beginning. She's just a normal person, not so epic. And it was nice for me to follow her narrative as she is being amongst all of these very, very epic people.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Erickson's talked about that he like attempted to get into like Rake's head, right? Animander Rake. And I know he's not in this book, but like he's so epic and he's so like unknowable with, being hundreds of thousands of years old and all this stuff. And that he just was like, we can't, he's got to be seen from afar. And really, we just, we don't know what's in his head.
Yeah, I think that works better though in the end, because it's kind of like when you throw in a character that's a god, you don't get their perspective. You kind of just see them as an almighty powerful thing that you have no clue what's going to go on, and it adds a bit of suspense and mystery to the character as well as the circumstances, because you don't know what they're going to do on top of all the other things that are going on in the world. So I like that he did that with Animander Rake. But I loved with Felice and getting to see all the nitty gritty from the stages of like addiction to trying to survive, and then fighting with the people she's trying to save, and all of that along the way was just, it adds a dynamic that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, and you see her like, I mean, she gets addicted to that life, right? Not just to the drugs, but to the life and to being dependent on, and some of the revelations, since we are in spoiler territory, of like, because she kind of even thought that she had a little more influence with the boss guy. I forget his name. Like
Benneth.
her boss at the Odotarl. Yeah, at the Odotarl mines. Yeah, Benneth. Yeah. And kind of just like he, kind of learning later, like he also didn't, he treated you like so much chaff as well.
It just felt so human for her to get addicted to that lifestyle, because that lifestyle, while she wouldn't have chosen it beforehand, is what brought her the only sense of comfort she could have in this horrible environment. And so like her body has learned that if she does this, she gets more comforts than if she does not do that thing. And so I liked seeing this sounds bad. I liked seeing her struggle, but I enjoyed reading about the struggles because it just felt so real to me. And you know, the fighting amongst the group of friends, they did not all trust each other, and yet they were all still trying their best to look out for each other. I loved Felice's chapters. And then Kalam, because I know we mentioned him a little bit ago. This might sound bad, but I was only interested in him after he got stabbed and thrown overboard, and then I was like, "Ooh, that's cool."
So what we're hearing from this conversation so far is Malazan will make you question your ethics and how dark your interests will go in books.
Yeah.
That's good. No, yeah, I love Callum. He's amazing. He's one of those that, yeah, and that's that's where I'm going. Is my perspective from just all the books that he's in or whatever. But yeah, and that is a crazy, and especially that's what I love that. What Erickson does so well is to like set up these just like epic moments, or just these epic things that even a person. Callum's not a god. He's not a descendant. He's a very talented claw assassin, but he's still very mortal, and yet you kind of see like, oh, he's dead. He's even in armor. He's fallen off that boat. He's stabbed, and you're still like, even I don't know. You're still just like, oh, the guy that stabbed him. You're going, you sure that was smart? Instead of doing the whole job, because it's Callum. Mm-hmm. All right. And then, he comes back, and it's just, anyway, it's pretty epic when you're like, oh my gosh, he had to fight sharks off. Yes. I think I'd be like, just eat me. I'm done. All right.
Yeah.
Get it over fast. That's all.
I also really liked the threat of sharks being in this novel multiple times, with all of the different water and boat scenes we got. Like, I love water and boats in fantasy series, and so I thought that was a lot of fun. And then our characters escaping, where there's this like crazy mage warren fight battle thing, and I'm like, what is going on? This is insane. But it was very cool to read about.
In a boat that's propelled by undead rowers.
Yeah.
So nuts.
Yeah, I got to that scene. I had to stop because I was like, what did I just read? What is this place? And I had to read that scene actually back, because I didn't fully understand when they were discussing the origins of it, where they thought it came from. Yeah, that scene was a bit of a shock.
I love all the implications that after going through some of those warrens that they're trying to escape so badly, a couple end up ascendants, or at least ascending, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
I love that. They're just like, this whole world is so crazy to me, and you're just like, how does that happen? Well, okay, I want to figure this out.
In Deadhouse Gates especially, it's almost like becoming an ascendant, becoming a god is a disease, a virus that's being spread, with how many characters it was happening to. It's like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. But yeah, I figure too, for everyone watching us right now, if you want to let us know what your favorite character was to read about in this book, my favorite was definitely Felice. But I'm curious to hear from you guys. What's your every time you got a scene from them that was your favorite part of the book, what was that for you all?
Yeah, I liked Felice probably the most out of it, because I love that character driven narrative. But my other two that I actually love coming back to as well was Kalam and Dyker. I'm not sure if that's how you. I'm probably going to
calls it Dyker, and I pronounce it Duiker in my head the first time. So I'm not reliable.
For anyone watching, I'm going to butcher all of these names, and I apologize. But those three, every time I came back to those characters, I absolutely loved their storylines and the events that they ended up getting caught up in, because this time around, it didn't feel like anything was really planned. Like, it was just one thing after the next. These guys did not get a break.
No. No, and that's what they were constantly harried the whole time. They weren't ready for the whole continent to rise up. And then suddenly you've got to figure it out. But I love mine is the sappers, I would have to say. One, their mysterious leader that never shows up to the leadership meetings. And just how they're always like even 2 steps ahead of Corbola Dome. Just makes me so happy.
Yeah, vote for Colton. I feel like we haven't spoken much about Colton so far. I will say Coltain's chapters I struggled with, or not chapters, Coltain's moments I struggled with a bit because they did tend to be combat heavy, and I think Erickson's combat, because it's a bit more zoomed out than I'm used to. I struggle with a bit reading. I don't dislike it necessarily, but those are just moments where I'm finding myself having to reread quite a bit to understand what's going on. And so because Colton had so many combat scenes, Colton was definitely a moment of the book that was a struggle for me. However, Colton's ending being so brutal, and then that epilogue, I am very intrigued about Colton definitely now. So he got me in the end, where I was like, oh, okay, Colton is cool. Colton is interesting.
Well, and that's what I always say too, is like a lot of times I feel like you can gauge, because I feel like Erickson does get a lot of grief for not being good on characters. But I always kind of like gauge what your feelings of them when something about them are when something bad happens to them, as I feel like that's like a good gauge of that, of how well he's done with the character, right? Like Colton, you might have felt a little distance from, and I think that was the intent, right? He's this leader, and he has to maintain that leadership, right? He never can falter for a second, or else literally the whole thing will crumble down. He's got a plan, even though he probably doesn't even have a plan at all, but he's got to look like it. And then to in the end have these tragic events, and you're just gutted because of what has happened. And that's where I go, okay, clearly these characters have an impact on me, even though maybe I didn't see it. And I have to say, it's taken 3 reads to start to understand that Wiccan sense of humor. I think I'm getting there. And it's pretty funny, but it's not. It's hard.
Also, this comment is very interesting, Jeff. And Deadhouse, seeing most of the battles from the perspective of a war historian. Yeah, I definitely can see that. And that's why I was like, it's like more zoomed out than I'm used to, and makes sense with the perspective of a war historian. Yeah, the battles, I don't know, I definitely struggled with them. And I'm not saying they're like bad for everyone. It's just for what I'm used to reading. They were hard for me to grasp what was going on at a lot of time. Those are the moments where I was looking up afterwards, being like, what just happened? Because there were moments where it just felt like, yes, I am reading words, but I do not understand what these words mean altogether.
Well, and I had that even with so I mean, to get to yet another part of the book, the path of the hand. And suddenly you're learning about these like shape changers, the soul taken, the diverse, and you have just like this whirlwind sometimes of just like rats or something, or and you're just like, what is happening here? And magic, right? And everything. So absolutely. And that was even me on the 3rd time through.
Yeah. I think that's why I ended up liking Dyker a lot more than Colton, was because we see everything through their perspective instead. And I also felt bad. Like, this poor dude just, wanted to live his life, and people just kept bringing him up to the front lines, being like, just watch. Just stand in the deep of it and watch. And you're like, oh, well, lovely. That's great life to live. Poor guy.
When I like, he takes, from that experience, and you can see he's like, holy cow, like you get from him this, like, this is unprecedented, right? Which you may not have otherwise known without it coming from his perspective.
Yeah. Even like his moments of shock, and it was I think much more impactful than it would have been through Coltane's perspective if we had gotten that.
Yeah, I think playing with perspective on whose mind we're in and whose mind we don't get access to is very interesting about this book too, because specifically I'm thinking of the scene where Kalam meets with the Empress and things are not as they seem, and she has kind of good reasons behind all of the things that are going wrong. And I should have picked out the quote, but I just forgot until this moment. But there was a quote in there about Kalam like self-reflecting and realizing he just wanted there to be an easy solution to all of this horrible things going on. And the easy solution was assassinating the Empress, and realizing there is no easy solution to what is going on. They all just have to suffer through this complexity, because assassinating one person will fix nothing. And he just walks away. I found that scene so interesting, and seeing the Empress for the first time and seeing her perspective, and like Erikson showing us, hey, you're getting all these very biased point of views on everything. And while this could be that character's truth, we may not be getting the objective truth on the situation, which is very, very cool.
That's a good point. And the way you brought it up there, because I'd never really thought of this before, this connection, but I love the way you kind of put that right there. There's this great line or part section of Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, and he's like it's easy to sacrifice, to like be like, I'll lay down my life for this cause. Like that's really pretty easy if you think about it. He's like, what's really hard is to go dedicate yourself to that cause for years and to suffer with that cause for years. And and so in one little eye blink you can sacrifice, and it's a great sacrifice, right? Not saying that dying for something isn't a great sacrifice. I mean, he's just saying like it's also very much a sacrifice to lay down your time and your life and your effort in a different way. But that's a good anyway. I just hadn't put those two together before.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a good point. I didn't think of it that way either. I did like that she wasn't actually there. That was the other part that tripped me up. I figured, oh, he just, he saw the different perspective and walked away. But then realizing later that she actually wasn't there in the flesh.
Yes.
I was like, oh, that was a whole game.
Yeah, I love that too, because then it totally shifts everything once again, where you're like, would he have assassinated her then if she was there? So I like the ambiguity of, is assassinating her still our main goal? Is it not anymore? Would it have happened if she was really there? And then them like playing on each other's mind games at different levels of, what do you know that I know? And do you know that I know this thing that, it's just so many levels. And yeah, that scene was one of my favorite scenes in this whole book, which is funny because I didn't dislike Kalam, but I was just very like so about him. And so for the best scene in the book to be with Kalam, for me, I was like, okay, Erikson.
That's what I love about it's plans within plans. This is the first series that it was just like that idea of like plans within plans within plans. It was like a thing for me, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I mean, I started reading this back in Yon 08, so I've been with this for a bit, but it's like yeah, that I like that a lot. That's so crazy that and you think you're going to take on the like head of who started the Claw, who is like now became the Empress, who's able to outwit to some degree Kilanvid and Dancer. You think you're just going to go walk up to her and kill her? Like she's right there. I'll just go do it.
Yeah, just knock on the door.
How unfortunate for her too, that her people that she is like very much against, the past emperor and the assassin, have now ascended. How unfortunate for that woman. Like, man, that is unlucky.
Oh man, I keep wanting to get into stuff because we're into Memories of Ice that like are coming up in Memories of Ice that I won't. But anyway,
I know it's difficult because we've both already started reading Memories of Ice too. We were chatting a little bit about it behind backstage. But yes, trying to keep this Deadhouse Gates. But memories-wise, I'm excited for next week to discuss it more.
Yeah.
Same.
Maybe we could talk too about, because we brought up the rats earlier. There were some horrific scenes in this book, and like scenes that would belong in a horror book of, hey, here's this incredibly gruesome death, let's throw it into this series with the rats, and then not necessarily deaths, but with the blood flies as well.
Yeah.
I was freaked out reading about the, oh god, like that was terrible.
Oh man.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No, go ahead, Kayla. You.
I was just gonna say for the rats, and I think it was Culp. I had, that was another scene I had to go back and reread because I was like, wait, excuse me? That was so, it was like a snap of a finger, just gone. Excuse me? And that was actually one of the like, I guess, side characters. I'm not sure what they're classified as, but that was actually one of the side characters I liked. So I was sad about that. But then the flies as well, and the scarring, and how Felice just, okay, this is my life. Like, no, don't fix it. I'm fine. Like, I'm sorry, what? That must have been so painful.
Oh yeah, and that's where I was just like, what? You can just get rid of somebody that easily, and that's the thing, is nobody's even safe remotely.
I mean, George R.R. Martin gets a lot of like moments in his reputation of, he doesn't care about character deaths, he'll kill off anyone. Erikson should have that reputation. I mean, maybe he does, and I just am not aware of it. But so far, Erikson deserves that reputation as well, with how many, like, not only is he able to kill anyone in his books, but just the brutality and the quickness of the scene too. Is like, oh, and this character we've been following for hundreds of pages is now dead in this horrible way. Moving on. And I'm like, I have an exact memory of when I read Culp's death, because I was doing my makeup listening to the book, and I literally like stopped and put down the brush, and I was like, rewind. What
just happened?
Yes.
No, that's, I know, and it's stuff like that that gets me. That's where, Erikson's known as being grimdark, right? And I think he as an author disagrees with that, and I think we'll really find out at the end of Memories of Ice, because it's really just about, because he does still have compassion, and compassion is really the backbone of the series, as crazy as that sounds, I think, to most people. But I think you have to also show the terrible things. I'm slowly coming around to the fact that maybe it's not grimdark. I love grimdark, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it's not just for the sake of being grim and dark that it's happening. It's also to show those reactions, like you said, with Felice or wherever. Sorry. Her reaction, and she's become dead to the world, right? And at that point, and then in your reaction as a living human who has feelings and emotions, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I liked him too, you need him, not to mention. And so anyway, but they're absolutely the most brutal of things. But I think to show, you can't, you can also show the only way to show the most amount of compassion is to show the opposite end of that spectrum. Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I hadn't picked up on the compassion part. I did wonder if this would be classified as a grimdark. I like grimdark as well, but when I thought about it, it doesn't fit for me as a grimdark. I would just say it shows the ravages of a war-torn country, which is just brutal. War is brutal. And I think you and I were talking about this beforehand, Kaylee, as well, where the scenes with the poor children and the after effects of how that impacted them. And, no one is safe from war and battle and being caught in the middle of it, whether they're innocent or not. For me, this is just, how brutal life can get if the world just steps out of balance. And grimdark is just a bit more like dark for the reason of dark.
Yeah. I always like to pull up the quotes, like the quote section on Goodreads or something for the book that we're looking at. And this one always, it has a lot, like one of the quotes, the lesson of history is that no one learns, right? And there's another one that's close to that. But I absolutely, like you said, Kayla, that's spot on, is that exactly, this is just, I mean, a lot of fantasy that we read just kind of gets from this one perspective, and this is Malazan is really trying to show you a whole epic scope, and not all of it's pretty.
No. I think at this point in the series, from books 1 and book 2, the only person who is enjoying themselves is Crupper with his feasts. That's probably the only person who's having a good time at this point.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking when we were discussing Grimdark, and cause I don't think I've read any books that would classify as Grimdark, so I'm not sure I completely like understand the feeling of a Grimdark book. But the other darkest fantasy book series that I've read is the Poppy War trilogy, which is again about the horrors of war, the brutality of war. And so I think both of those series, Poppy War and then Malazan, is just they do them so well, where war is affecting everyone, not just our key heroic players in the war, but the innocent citizens. Jeff has an interesting question here. If Grimdark is defined as very dark without hope, the question is there hope found in Malazan?
It's in avoiding the notice of the gods.
Just stay out of the radar.
That's a quote from Gardens, I think, something around it. I'm never good with exact quotes. I can get the gist.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like I've heard authors classify their books as grimdark with a slice of hope. I think when you start going that far into the subgenres, you're going to get blurred lines. You're going to get different opinions. Everyone's experience with it is going to be different. But yeah, when this series is a lot more brutal than I was anticipating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's hard too because we have so much dark fantasy now, because it's just a trend that's exploded within fantasy. Like almost all fantasy is super dark. So what is grimdark versus just regular dark fantasy? Always an interesting conversation to have. And I don't think there is a standard line between the two. As you said, the blurred lines are happening with the subgenres. But yeah, Malazan definitely very dark, very, very dark. But I do think we see these small moments of hope throughout Malazan.
And I, to be able to truly answer that question, I'd have to get into spoilers for like all the rest of the series. So
stay tuned.
I think there definitely is, and I'll leave it at that.
So I actually have a question for you both and anyone watching. What did you think of Haborik and the whole arc that we get with his character in this book?
Ghost hands.
Yeah. one or two words.
Haborik's hard. He's he's friends with Dyker, right? Dyker is the one that sent people out to go scoop him up, hopefully. He's a hard one because I think he's got his own pride too, right? But at the same, I don't know, but also like, someone willing to stand up and then got himself de-handed. I don't know how you call that. Sorry. But where that's pretty debilitating, and it's like one of the worst things that can happen in his Fenner cult, right? The Fenner religion or whatever that he's following. But again, willing to kind of still stand up. You have some of his quotes throughout, like in some of the epigraphs. So it's interesting. I'm still trying to piece together like really who this guy is, but I do feel like he really does care, and he's patient with Felice in the fact that he's taken a lot from her and he keeps trying to help. And he doesn't have Bowden's like duty of loyalty, right? That Bowden had going into it, because he was the one hired to really help Felice out, right? And so he's doing it just felt bad for a 15-year-old girl, probably. I don't know. It's wanted to and wasn't probably hating after a while some of the nice things that she brought in, right, for him. So anyway, he's again a very complex character. I think that a scholar knows his stuff, but then it's like, why did you touch the Jade statue? Did you know what was going on?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Hey, good timing. We planned that. Thank you.
Yeah, his character, I'm not gonna lie, I think a lot of the lore and backstory of his character went a little bit over my head in the book. But I thought that his and Felice's interactions throughout were very interesting because there's a lot of give and take between the two of them. Where Felice was doing things and making sure he was a little bit more taken care of than just someone without the access to the higher authority in their slave labor camp. And then him making sure that she is included in the escape plan as well. And yet they also seemingly disapprove of each other at the same time. So I liked the complexities of their friendship. And, I was oftentimes wondering of their true motivations, but it seems like their true motivations were just they kind of care about each other and they kind of dislike each other at the same time. But yeah, the Jade statue part was very weird of him touching the Jade statue with like ghost hands or something, and then like a god appearing. I don't know. Like this part, I was a little bit confused about, honestly.
So it like pulls the god down somehow, and again, that's not for me to know, I guess, or I don't know, and maybe I haven't read enough for need to reread. But Fenner the god, he's kind of gets pulled to the mortal realm, right? And it allows for Treach to ascend, or at least to become even a god. And yeah, so it's hard. I know it's like, again, it's one of those culp in an instant, gone.
Yeah.
Some crazy huge big thing, and suddenly he has ghost hands and they're very powerful. And he can even use them. Like, I felt like there's at one point, right, where he's like, just step on it, and he was like, step on what? Like, what are you talking about? And yeah, no, it is crazy, and you're definitely going, what is with these Jade statues? Like, what? And you're only seeing like this little like upper hand of how big is the whole thing. And again, I love
they
that.
touch like the finger of the statue is like a giant finger that was very weird.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all that. I think too, part of what I liked about his character was how he ends up towards the end of the book, in the sense of confidence and having that air about him, compared to the beginning of the book where he felt kind of like a feebled old man.
Mm-hmm.
How he was towards the end made me think, was this how he was before we met him and before he lost his hands? And is this just an ego that he's found because of his newfound ghost hands? Or was he always like this and, kind of fell back to, a quieter, more self-conscious kind of character? And I definitely agree with his relationship with Felice in the sense that they seem bound by circumstance at this point. Whether, they're just like, all right, I guess we'll stick together. I don't know what's going to come out of this, but all right. I got nothing else to do. So, I mean, Haborik could probably go off with ghost hands or something. And
good thing we won't find out any more about them until book 4.
They're just such an unlikely pair. I really
Yeah.
like their dynamic together.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, what a weird duo, but they work. They definitely.
Yeah. Well, they both just completely disapproving of each other, like almost to their like essence.
Yeah.
Like everything about each other.
Well, they're complete opposites too. She's 15-year-old girl who's been through some stuff, and he's, I don't know, I don't even know how old he is, Haborik, but he seems older, more mature, more self-aware, and he's just kind of like the grandfather being tugged along, or the dad being tugged along, being like, all right, okay, go through this garbage, sure. Told you so.
Yeah, I was picturing him as an old man the whole time, but I'm not sure because I also was picturing Felice as a grown woman, not a 15-year-old. So I'm unsure about all of my picturing of characters
I
now.
trust nothing anymore.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're coming up on 45 minutes, so I don't want us to be here for too much longer because I know both of you have lots of things to be doing for today. So, um, as we wrap this up, in the comments, if there's anything else you want to make sure we mention before we end the live show, let us know as soon as you're able to. But I just really quickly wanted to mention like some of the recurring characters we got because we did see Crocus and Absalar and some of that group in this book. And those two were like some of my favorite two in Gardens of the Moon. And I don't know, they kind of fell in the background. I mean, intentionally fell in the background in this book a little bit. I appreciated their dynamic of Crocus kind of being at the towards the beginning of the book, being suspicious of Kalam and the fiddler and realizing like that because Crocus is kind of a naive little boy in this world, but him realizing like you have some ulterior motives and I'm just trying to get Absalar home. Like, what the heck are you guys doing? I don't trust you. It's really annoying. And I liked that dynamic at the beginning. But then I feel like after the first third of the book, I don't know, were there even Crocus and Absalar scenes or like I can't remember any significant.
so a lot of it was with Iskro Pust there, and that's what I was going to ask you guys about your thoughts on Mr. Pust, and then also Mappo and Ikariam, right? When they all kind of get together and they're at the end essentially of the path of the hand, right? That which again, that ascendancy thing that you mentioned, Kayla, that every or I forget which one. I'm sorry, who mentioned about like everybody getting ascendancy at some point, right? Yeah, so I thought, anyway, just. That because the Mappo and Ikariam, and I don't mean to like, I'm definitely curious about your guys' opinions. Just that was one where I was in tears just to see Mappo. Like, I mean, it's just only fantasy can give us the situation where you've got this genocidal maniac who can literally destroy like a whole continent, probably. And yet he's the kindest, most gentle being when he's not in that state. And he's got a best friend here that's supposed to protect the world essentially from him. And just that friendship that's grown over the centuries. And then he doesn't even want to do the thing that he probably should do for mankind. It's just like only fantasy can give. That's why I love this. Is like takes like the moral questions, the psychology and everything just to the extreme. Anyway, what are your thoughts on that?
For Mappo and Ikariam, I definitely wasn't expecting that reveal for their dynamic. And to be honest, their storyline kind of fell to the sideline for me until the reveal, until we find out what Ikariam is and who he's related to as well. Yeah. That was a big shock for me too. I think I'll probably be more invested the more I sit on it. For right now, it's kind of like, oh, that was unexpected and I'm still digesting it. But overall, I do like that dynamic for the reason that you said. You're only going to get that kind of situation, and the sadness that goes with it in fantasy.
Yeah, I have similar feelings to Kayla where I up until the reveal, I was a little bit indifferent about their characters, but then the reveal made me want to go back and re-experience their characters up until that point. Because I really loved the reveal of the memories and the amnesia and the friendship dynamic and like the genocidal like maniac part, like you mentioned, Bryce. It was a cool reveal, and it made me wish I had given more energy to their characters up until that point. Because their characters, there were moments where I think I should have like gone back and reread a couple parts, but there's just so much. And I was constantly in the state of, should I reread this or should I just push through at this moment? Because The problem with Malazan, where sometimes I am struggling a bit, is I don't know if I'm supposed to struggle in this moment and I'm supposed to know this information, or if I'm not supposed to know this information. And
That is
like,
normal.
yeah, and
I have
so
the same problem.
yeah, sometimes I think I push through in moments where I'm supposed to understand more than I have actually understood. But yeah, the reveal. So the reveal didn't hit as hard for me emotionally, but it piqued my interest so much where I wish I had paid more attention to them throughout.
When I still feel like in any Malazan book, especially first time through, if the ending hits for you to any degree, then you've done well to just keep going, because you're just not. I mean, and that's the beauty of the series, is that I really rank high, something that I can rewatch. Right, the Lord of the Rings movies, I can rewatch them over and over again. There's so many things, and this is one of those series where rereads, instead of being like, yeah, I know what happens, it's, oh, that was there. And that happens like constantly with this series.
Yeah, I actually just discovered today that, because I've been afraid of the wiki up until this point, because I haven't wanted to. I've accidentally spoiled myself on giant moments on different wikis in the past, and so I've been avoiding it. But I noticed today that it's actually real. And I should have assumed this, but I just had this prior phobia of wikis. But it's very well organized, where you can go in and get the information you need in the moment of the book that you need it at. And the chapter summaries are really well done. So I think I'm utilizing the wiki much more now.
This is a much better wiki than usual. And it breaks it down. You can't even see the other books that character's in or whatever. It only will go to the certain book. It's a good one. And I have a theory. I may be wrong. I honestly think you could know the very ending of the book. I don't think there's a way to be too spoiled with this series, just because you're so confused. Any bit of information just kind of helps you appreciate things better. Anyway, I don't know. It's a going theory that I don't know how to test, but I do think that, because I was spoiled for a couple little things just going in. It wasn't a ton. And it still was it's still my favorite series ever. So
Yeah, and I think you asked about Pust as well.
Pust. Such is the vastness of his genius that he can outwit even himself.
So, I mean, impressions from beginning to end, crazy old guy who is incredibly suspicious. That's my impression. I was suspicious of this person the entire time, and just I knew that there was something greater going on with this character, but at the same time, like, oh no, this guy's just disconnected from reality. He's living like 3 different realities at once.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Suspicious.
Yeah, very suspicious.
I just love his incredulousness when everyone is like who's clearly hearing his thoughts out loud to himself. Yeah. And they're like, so you're going to do this? And he's like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, there are a couple moments, and again, I should have been better about pulling the quotes out when they happened, but there are a couple of moments with his character specifically where I was actually like verbally chuckling, because it was like, what the heck? This is so weird.
Even the part where he tells Mappo's like, where's the library? And he's like, turn right, go 34 paces, turn left 12 paces, right 3 paces. And Mappo's like, so go left 19 paces.
What the
heck? He's like, yeah.
So convoluted for no reason. Yeah, my overall impressions for the series so far is that you need to pay attention for like every paragraph. Every line has something hinted, has something of importance in it. And Kaylee, you and I were talking about this beforehand too. It was like, this series is a hard sale. This is over 20,000 pages, a long, long series that you probably won't understand until you reread it or you break it down with a veteran. So read the books. You know, like, it's a dense read. You know, someone told me, oh, you know, epic fantasy 1,000 pages. Yeah, sure. I can get that out, no problem.
Yeah,
Read that quick. Yeah. This, I'm like, no, I'm down for weeks.
Mhm.
I'm focused. Don't talk to me. I need to pay attention because if I miss one paragraph, I'm going to be lost.
Yeah. Yeah, I typically fly through these long fantasy books in just like 2 to 3 days. Like I read books very quickly typically. These books take me weeks to read, just to give it the time that it is due. Like I could read it more quickly in the 2 to 3 days, but the amount that I would get out of the book would be incredibly low. And so, yeah, these are
Mhm.
books that you need to spend your time with, in my opinion, and you get more out of it, like more enjoyment if you spend more time with
Mhm.
it.
The-
But even with spending a lot of time with it, I'm still feeling like I could spend more time with it.
Mhm.
The only other author that I think kind of is at the same kind of level is Janie Wirtz.
Mm.
I don't know if you've read any of her stuff, but it's complex fantasy that you can't just, I can't at least just read in a couple days, because I'm the same way Kaylee is like, yeah, I mean, yeah, a 1,000-page fantasy book, that doesn't intimidate me. Let's go, I love that stuff. That's what I eat up. But Wirtz really has like dense stuff that like you see, like stuff that's foreshadowed early on is like getting payoffs like way later on. And so I'm like, okay, I need to even reread before I get too deep into the series.
Well, I think we're going to wrap up this live show. We do have a live show at the same time next week, for Memories of Ice, and I believe it will be on Bryce's channel.
Right.
Yes. And so if you want to come along and watch us discuss Memories of Ice, make sure to turn on or make sure to check out Bryce's channel on next week. We're Kayla and I were talking, we're like pretty far into it, and I, spoiler alert, am enjoying Memories of Ice the most so far. So I'm very excited to talk about it because I'm having a great time with it. But yeah, and I also linked in the description box our link to the first live show for Gardens of the Moon, which was on Kayla's channel. So if you missed that and you want to check out what we had to say about the first book, go ahead and check it out. And then Kayla and Bryce's channels are also linked down below.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Yes,
of
thank
course.
you.
Thanks
And
everyone for tuning in. And I'm going to end now. So goodbye, everyone. See you next week.